Welcome to Geometry Essential Standard 3, Learning Target 7A. Today we will be talking about lines being cut by a transversal. So our objectives today are identifying parallel, perpendicular, and skew lines, and then we'll also identify the angles formed by two lines in a transversal. So the first thing that we'll talk about is some vocabulary. So parallel lines are lines that are coplanar. Remember, coplanar means lying in the same plane, and do not intersect. We will use this symbol here, so the two vertical lines, to indicate parallel. So in the picture you can see that line AB and line EF are parallel to each other. And we indicate that with the red arrows. So we put a single red arrow on this one and a single red arrow on this one. We could also see that EG and FH are parallel, and since we want them to not be indicated parallel to EF because obviously they intersect EF, we put a set of double arrows on EG and a set of double arrows on FH to show that they are parallel. Perpendicular, remember perpendicular means that they form a right angle. We use the upside down T to indicate perpendicular whenever we write it out. So AB is perpendicular to AE. We over here on line AB and AE, I put this little box in it to show that they are perpendicular because they make 90-degree angles. Skew is something that is a new term to you most likely. Skew means that they are not coplanar. So in other words, they lie in different planes and they're not parallel. So AB, so this top back line here, and EG would be skew because they're definitely not parallel, and they would also never intersect because AB runs behind EG. So that's what skew means. Then we also talk about parallel planes. Parallel planes is the same as parallel lines, but we're dealing with planes instead. So if we talked about plane ABE is this top plane here. Remember, it extends in two directions forever and ever, is parallel to plane CDG. I don't know where they got the D from. Plane CWG. Sorry about that. So the top plane and the bottom plane would be parallel to each other. And we can use the same symbol for parallel, whether we're talking about lines or planes. So please pause the video and complete these 4 problems. Welcome back. So a pair of parallel segments, you could have used NK sorry, it says segments, so we don't want arrows on them. NK is parallel to ML because they both have a single red arrow on it. I also could have used NK and RQ or NK and SP or any combination of those 4 lines. Same thing with the 4 vertical lines. I could have chosen any 2 of those. A pair of skew segments. So skew, remember, means non-coplanar and they're not parallel. So I could have used like segment SN. So that's this front one here. And I need to choose something that's not parallel, that is not in the same plane. So like I could choose PQ. There is not a symbol for skew, so we just list them out with a comma. A pair of parallel segments, a pair of perpendicular segments. So I'm looking for a right angle, and I see 3 right angle signs. One of them is down here, so I would say SN is perpendicular to SR. Sorry, I don't know what was going on there. SR. And then a pair of parallel planes. So I could talk about the front plane, the 3 of spades there. That would be plane SRM. would be parallel to plane, and it would be parallel to the back card there, which is plane PQL. And I know that because the front lines SN and MR are parallel to these lines back here, and they clearly don't intersect or are not on the same plane. So that's why we know that those planes are parallel. A transversal is also a new term. So a transversal is a line that intersects two coplanar lines. So line T here would be our transversal intersecting lines R and S. It creates both interior and exterior angles. So the angles that are in between the two non-transversal lines are the interior ones, and the ones on the outside, like 1, 2, 7, and 8, are your exterior angles. Now we're going to come up with several sets of angle pairs here. So corresponding angles are angles that lie on the same side of the transversal and on the same sides of lines R and S. So corresponding, we think of same spot, different lines. That's how I try and help you remember corresponding angles. So angle 1 and the corresponding angle to it. So if I look, it's in the upper left corner of R and T. So the upper left corner of S and T is angle 5. So angles 1 and 5 would be corresponding angles. Another set would be angle 2 and angle 6, because they're both in the upper right corner of those sets of intersecting lines. Angle 3 and angle 7 are both in the bottom left, and then the last set would be angles 4 and 8. So we have 4 sets of corresponding angles in that picture. For alternate interior angles, well, they need to be interior, and then alternate means on different sides of the transversal. And these have to be non-adjacent angles, because remember, the adjacent angles, like 5 and 6, those form a linear pair. So that's not a new angle pair. So alternate interior angles, we have 2 sets of these. We'd have angle 3 and angle 6, because those are on different sides of this line T, and they are both interior angles. And then the other set would be angle 5 and angle 4. Alternate exterior angles. So same idea with the alternate exterior angles as we had with the alternate interior angles. So angle 1 would go with angle 8, because those are on different sides of line T, and they're both exterior angles. So angle 1 and angle 8, and then we have another set, of course, in angle 2 and angle 7. Then the last one is called same side interior angles. These are also known as consecutive interior angles. You can call them either one. We'll count them both right on the test, as we are used to hearing both of them. So if you think of alternate interior angles as being on different sides, same side simply means that they're on the same side of the transversal. So angle 3, the other interior angle that's on the same side of this transversal T, is angle 5. And the other set then is angles 4 and 6. Give an example of each angle pair. So please pause the video and try these 4 on your own. Okay, so what you should have found here for corresponding angles, there are 4 possible answers. One answer would be angle 1 and angle 5. But you could have said 2 and 6. You also could have said 4 and 8, or you could have said 3 and 7. Alternate interior angles, one possible answer would have been angle 4 and angle 6. Another possible answer would have been angle 3 and 5. Alternate exterior angles, one possible answer would have been angle 1 and angle 7. but if you said 2 and 8, that would also be correct. And then same side interior angles, one example would be 4 and 5, and another set would have been 3 and 6. Hopefully you got all 4 of those correct. Identify the transversal and classify each angle pair. So when we talk about angle 1 and angle 3, so angle 1 is here, angle 3 is here. The transversal has to touch both those angles. So my transversal has to be line L. And if my transversal is line L, then angle 1 and angle 3 are corresponding angles. And that's how we abbreviate corresponding angles. Now let's move on to letter B here. So letter B asks about angle 2. So angle 2 is here, and angle 6. So the line that touches both those angles is this line here, which is line N. So N is my transversal. And those, they're both interior because they're between the two lines. So they're between line L and line M. And they're on different sides of that transversal. So those are alternate interior angles. And this can be confusing because a lot of people look at angle 6 and think that it's automatically an exterior angle. But when you pair it with angle 2, they're both between the lines. So that's where a common confusing point. The last one, angles 4 and 6. So if we look at angle 4 and angle 6, if we highlight the transversal here that touches both of those angles, it would be line M. And I see that they're both on the exterior angle, and one is on the left of line M, and one is on the right. So those are alternate exterior angles. So angle 2 and angle 5. So if I highlight the transversal here, I see that N is the transversal, so they're both between the two lines, so they're both interior angles, and they're both on the right-hand side of the transversal N, so those are same side interior angles. Or you could say consecutive angles, and we'd be equally excited for you. The one thing that you don't want to forget is about your vertical angles. Remember, vertical angles are on opposite sides of intersecting lines. And we know that vertical angles will always be congruent. So these angles are congruent to these angles. And the same thing is true even if we draw it in like a triangle form, that we still have vertical angles. So if we look at this example here, and it asks how many different angle measurements are there in this picture. So for each one, I'll try and label it in green. So here I know that this set of angles would be congruent because they're vertical angles. I know that this set of angles would be the same. And then I have the same thing down here as well as on the other side. So we're up to 4 so far. And then I have these two obtuse angles down here, and the last two are these two acute angles here. So as far as different angle measurements, I have 6 different angle measurements in this picture. Please sign up for your teacher talk and start working on the practice. Thank you.